The Nashville Predators scored another 6 goals and got a preseason win against not quite the Carolina Hurricanes last night. On today's show, we're going to share our takeaways from this preseason win and give you our short list of what we want to see Nashville get better at with just 1 week until their regular season kicks off.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Thursday, or as my good friend says, this Friday Junior episode, welcoming any first-time listeners and giving a shout out to our everydayers and our LO Preds insiders who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support. We love that we get to spend just a little bit of your day with you. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
On today's show, we're going to talk about yet another strong showing on the scoreboard from Nashville, but it was a little bit of a similar situation to that Tampa Bay win. The Carolina Hurricanes opted to give many of their young prospects the start. So this was a preseason win last night that's going to come with a grain of salt, but we are going to talk about what some takeaways were from this game. We're going to share with you the standout players we saw, and we're going to dive into a few areas where we really want to see Nashville make some improvement before they face off against that Dallas Stars team. And friends, that regular season kickoff for Nashville is a week from today. Before we dive into all of that good hockey talk, I want to let you know today's episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Emma, Predators, another impressive win when you look at the score sheet. And it was an impressive win, another half dozen goals. But different looking, two very different looking rosters. Nashville started what is the closest we've seen to their regular season roster. Carolina, not so much. And it was I'll be honest, it was kind of fun to see some of their prospects that I have heard about play. But for Nashville, for their roster, of course, we had the top line going. We had Novak with Marchessault and with Stamkos. Did see Michael McCarron with Ozzy Weisblatt and Zachary LaRue. Phil Tomasino was out there as well. Juuso Pärssinen. Defensively, saw the usual suspects. Brady Shea made his return in the preseason to Carolina. I saw a lot of signs, Emma. They were like, oh, you looked better in red. No, he does not. No, he does not. Gold is his color now, friends.
Yes.
Can't have him back.
Maybe objectively not the most attractive color, but it works for him.
Yes. Emotionally, he looks better in gold, but
yes,
y'all are probably not wrong logistically. But anyway, we did see Tanner Molendyk, Adam Wilsby get some time on the blue line, and then Scott Wedgwood was in goal. And our insiders had some feelings about that we're going to get to later in the episode. Predators had a great first period. Goal scorers, Juuso Pärssinen, Gus Nyquist. We have got to talk about this Gus Nyquist goal, Emma. Philip Forsberg, you little free-floating magician, you Doctor Strange, you what in the world? Literally horizontal to the ice, sort of spinning in the air, no body part really touching the earth. And he makes this just perfect pass to Gus Nyquist in the high slot for a goal. What in the Harry Potter nonsense was Philip Forsberg doing? He is never boring. This guy is never boring. I was like, please, just the game is over now. But it wasn't. It wasn't.
I think it was, you said I forget which episode it was, but when we were talking about that Forsberg O'Reilly Nyquist line, I think you said it looks like they've been picnicking together all summer. They have not
Yes.
missed a beat.
Yes. Yeah, they just pick up right where they leave off, and just some sort of weird telepathy. I don't know. We're gonna have to investigate that. Jeremy Lauzon cleaning up a net front goal with an assist from Ozzy Weisblatt, who really made a great play with the puck there. Dante Fabro from the blue line. Dante Fabro, a giant Juuso Pärssinen screen that never hurts. And then can we just talk about? And we're gonna dive into this later. Jonathan Marchessault, 2 goals, playing like a man possessed, and it's just the preseason. If his exit from Vegas put a chip on his shoulder, let's all just not knock that off because it was fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it was nice to see the balanced scoring attack there. Like you said, not exactly the full strength Carolina Hurricanes there, but
No.
it was still good to see the balanced attack there from the Preds.
Yeah, it was very refreshing to kind of feel excited when more than just that top line was on the ice. We usually do one word after a game. My one word for that game, Emma, was potential. And this was a game where I feel like some Predators individually and collectively, I think there was a lot of potential at times, and you'd love to see that. But gosh, I don't know. Going into this season, we are literally 1 week out from the season. Potential doesn't feel as comfortable, what is it Barry Trotz says, fantasy hockey doesn't feel as comfortable 7 days out as maybe it did 70 days out on July, whatever July 2nd was. So, you got to see this potential turn into points. And for me, this is the biggest I'm the optimist. This is the biggest moment where I'm like struggling, and I'll need you to carry the optimism backpack for us. Because when you start out with Dallas, you really want to win that first game. And man, I don't know. I don't know, Emma.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, but I for one am excited to get started and actually see like a real game. Not that these preseason games aren't real games, but like
it's not the same.
Tough competition. If you're getting, Carolina preseason with prospects is very different than Dallas full strength opening night. So
Yes.
I'm excited to see like you said, right now it's all about potential. Right now I'm just like, let's get going. Like I'm impatient. I want to see how this team matches up against a team like Dallas. Can I just say my one word from last night's game is Parssinen.
Oh
finally.
My God. We knew you were there. We knew you were there.
I was so happy. And like, not just with the goals, because like, obviously that, speaks for itself, but you mentioned that he had that screen on Fabro's goal. He was everywhere. He was mixing things up, and he was using his size, using his strength. And it was like, yes, there it is. Like, cause I was starting to be like, buddy, you're starting to make me look bad because I was talking you up all off season. And he was just kind of, again, he wasn't like a liability out there, but he was just kind of invisible. And now I'm like, thank you. So hopefully he can see some consistency there.
Yeah, it was definitely okay, there you are. Like, we knew you were there. We asked our insiders for their one word to describe last night's game. Matt said fine dining. I thought this was fantastic because you got a little of everything you want in a hockey game: goals, hits, big saves, and even a bloody fight. Oh, Michael McCarron, the dude was wearing a white jersey, and then he wasn't wearing a white jersey. He looked good in red. So that was a little rough. Chris said loose. Even with the Predators' main players in the lineup, you could tell they were trying things and seeing what showed success. Dustin said, coming along nicely. The team chemistry with the new guys seems to be building, getting a little bit better as we go. So I would agree with those. A lot of positive takeaways. I just am feeling the clock ticking down, and it's increasing my anxiety. And, maybe that's something I need to work on off podcasts. Coming up, we're going to talk some more about Juuso Pärssinen and a couple of the other players that stood out in last night's preseason win, including one player our insiders wanted to talk about, and maybe it didn't feel as good as we wanted. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. This is the most wonderful time of the year for sports. Hey, friends, the Detroit Tigers just eliminated the Astros from the MLB postseason. I'm just catching up on baseball. It was a big deal to me. The Titans finally got their first win this past week, and hockey, again, set to kick off this weekend. The best place to celebrate all of that is with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. NFL fans, you can kick off your season with a big return at FanDuel. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with that first $5 bet. And when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Check out all the action at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, Emma, we want to talk about those players that stood out. And I think I agree with you. Let's start with Juuso Pärssinen, because this is what I will say as somebody who's been at training camp consistently. We have not seen from Juuso Pärssinen what I thought we would see as much in training camp until last night. And then it was like, okay, does it worry you that we haven't seen it yet? And do you feel like maybe this is the real Juuso Pärssinen that we got in the game yesterday?
I don't know that I would escalate to worry yet, but maybe I would say I'm not sold yet. Like we saw one great performance and it's like, yes, this is what I believe he is capable of. But I've been holding on to this belief that what we saw from him in his rookie season in 22-23, where he just kind of like exploded onto the scene. I am holding on to the belief that was not just lightning in a bottle and that he is capable of so much more, because the Predators have a history and, have a very strong history of getting a lot out of these late round picks. And he was a 7th round pick that a lot of people passed on. And so I think that, he has yet to fully like kind of break out. He kind of did, in that rookie season. Then he got hurt, but came back at the very end. And then last year we kind of saw a little bit of that sophomore slump from him.
Yes.
But I think also that again was dealing with an injury during training camp last year. So he was just he never quite got caught up to everyone else. And so this year I'm like, all right, you're here, you have a full camp, you're healthy. Let's, if there was a time for you to actually, show, hey, this is what I can do, especially being on this 1-year prove it contract that they've just signed him to. I, have been expecting to see more, but I guess, again, I'm not necessarily worried yet, but I'm like, okay, now let's see more of that.
Yes. And I feel like he's been pretty quiet. He's been pretty easy to overlook in camp. And I think part of that is you have the surprise performance of Zachary Leroux. You have kind of the surprise performance of Ozzy Weisblatt, because we really haven't seen them for extended periods of time here in Nashville. But Juuso Pärssinen last night was kind of back to that player that we saw, like you said, that rookie season. He had this great kind of spinning shot, had that screen for Fabro's goal, was really battling net front. He had 3 blocks. He had 2 hits. He was just noticeable in this game, strong on the puck, all of the things that we liked from that initial rookie season, like you said, 22-23, that maybe was more inconsistent last season and ended up with him in Milwaukee. It leads to the question, and it's the question we're all debating, is Juuso Pärssinen going to start in Nashville over somebody like Zachary Leroux and Ozzy Weisblatt? And this is what I want to point out. A, I don't make the decisions and Andrew Burnett doesn't ask me. So I don't know what that's about, but that's just the facts. But Juuso Pärssinen, while he may not have had this really stand out training camp, this is somebody who does have 89 NHL games under his belt. Ozzy Weisblatt, Zachary Leroux haven't played any yet. And in a season where you're starting the season with very high expectations for the postseason, when you're starting playing teams like Dallas, Edmonton twice, you've got Boston, like this is a tough October schedule. It would make more sense to me to get Parssinen out on the ice more consistently with that just familiarity with the NHL game. But you need him to be consistent. I guess that's the thing I'm looking for from Juuso Pärssinen. I want more consistently the guy you were last night, because he has that talent. You just want to see him use it for 60 minutes, games in a row.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like the I don't know what the word is, not reliability, but I just, it gives me a certain level of comfort knowing that he has that NHL experience and knowing where this team is at right now. And again, I just think that guys like Zach Leroux, Ozzy Weisblatt, those are top 6 forwards.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be in the top 6 in Nashville, though.
Very true.
Just not, and that's nothing to do with them and has everything to do with the guys who are ahead of them. Like, I'm sorry, Zach Leroux, you're not getting a top 6 spot over Steven Stamkos. That's just not going to happen. So I think, if these are guys that you want getting top 6 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
they are only going to get that in Milwaukee at
Right.
this juncture right now. If you're looking at, plugging holes on your bottom 6, unfortunately, I do think, well, not unfortunately for Weisblatt and Leroux, I think that Parssinen fills that role much more nicely than they would. And I think that he's a guy that, works in his favor. He can play wing or center. In Nashville, he'd probably be playing wing unless they, need him to play center, but it's nice to have that versatility there.
Right.
He has really good size and he's, he can use his body a lot. And I think that he is really, again, I keep coming back to that that fourth line. And I know, like, we've seen Leroux there a lot, but we've also seen Mark Jankowski in there. To me, you have Jankowski and Parssinen on your opening night roster. Maybe you start Jankowski in your starting lineup. You have Parssinen as the extra forward. I don't know. But I just think that Leroux and Weisblatt, if they start the season in Nashville, whose spot are they taking? Like that's the thing.
Exactly.
And you don't want guys like that to be your extra forwards, to just be sitting and watching. So that's why I think that, like, to me, that's not to say that I don't see them playing in Nashville at all this year, because that's very much a possibility, but I just don't see them starting the season there.
I feel like that too. I think if, Leroux and Weisblatt head down to Milwaukee, I think that that's actually great for them. I don't think you could ask for better than what they have given you this training camp and preseason. Like, you could not ask them to be more consistent, to show you a very clear picture of their game. I think we've seen a lot of maturity from Zachary Leroux in the ways that he has engaged in preseason games. I've loved what we've seen from them, but you want them on the ice. They've got to be on the ice. And that probably means in Milwaukee to start. But I agree with you. I would not be surprised to see them in Nashville at some point. Here's the player that I loved seeing in Nashville Gold last night. That was Jonathan Marchessault. Here's what's real. I'm a little scared of him. I don't know if it's like the French side of him. I don't know he's a little terrifying in the best way. And last night on the ice, I thought he looked terrifying. Just a man possessed, 2 goals on 4 shots. Thank you very much. And we've talked about this before. He's the guy that has skill and he has grit. And it feels like he is just playing with a chip on his shoulder this season. And absolutely everybody just let it cook. Like, let that unhappiness cook because he was absolutely phenomenal last night. You saw great chemistry with he and Steven Stamkos. Stamkos had the assist on one of his goals, and saw Novak kind of in there with them as well. But I really feel like we noticed it between those two veterans, especially Jonathan Marchessault, maybe a little overlooked in the shadow of Steven Stamkos when it comes to, coming to Nashville. But man, I don't want to underestimate what this guy is going to do for Nashville.
I would agree. I mean, obviously, showing up on the score sheet is great. Another area where I think I will say I even overlooked this, or maybe didn't even overlook, but I didn't really, as Shaq would say, I was unfamiliar with his game.
Oh, I love that.
I think that what was interesting to me, because when talking about Stamkos, we've talked about, he's gonna add so many power play goals. This is gonna be huge for the power play. And we talk about Marchessault that way too, but we're like, yeah, he's no Stamkos on the power play, but he's an upgrade over what they had before. All true. But I think one thing I noticed with the power play last season for the Predators was that it seemed like they struggled a lot with zone entries.
Let's go.
It's like if they couldn't get set up perfectly, like on the first entry, then everything just fell apart.
Yes.
And so one thing, it's maybe kind of an overlooked thing, or at least something I overlooked, that Marchessault, at least in last night's game, was extremely skilled at, was getting the puck and getting it into the zone. Like it was, I was like, oh my God, he single-handedly fixed their zone entry problem. And it's just like, and it's like one of those things you don't really think about, like how to fix that. And sometimes you really just need the right guy. And I think that maybe, again, he's not going to be the power play scorer that, say, Stamkos is. And that's okay, because he now is playing, if he can keep this up, I especially noticed it last night, how he was able to get the puck straight into the zone, like zero hesitation. And it was just like, it was so perfect. It was so exactly what Andrew Brunette wanted. You could tell he wasn't getting all hung up on X's and O's and like, all right, let me get this perfect shot here, whatever. It's like, no, just get your butt into the zone and try to put the puck in the back of the net. And so I think that it was that kind of aggressive and proactive approach to the power play that Andrew Brunette preaches. And I think it was just like, it just kind of, at least for me, it was like a light bulb. I was like, that's what he brings to the power play. It's the zone entry. And so I think that was something that, I really noticed last night.
Absolutely agree with you 100%. And it was shocking on the first couple where Marchessault was the guy taking it in, because it was like, oh, wait, we're set up. Because usually as we're watching games, you can kind of straighten your notes and write some things down, because it's going to take about 35 seconds for them to even get close to the blue line.
Yeah.
And it was like all of the sudden, like that, they are in the zone and they're set up. All you have to do is just follow Jonathan Marchessault with the puck in the zone, and everybody just landed there and it was off and running. And oh my gosh, that has been missing. It was huge last night. It reminded me, I love history and I'm probably going to get this wrong, so walk me through. But it, like, last year, zone entries reminded me of like how they used to fight in the Revolutionary War. We're going to line up in a field and we're going to face off. And eventually we're going to knock enough of you down that we can move forward. And then we're going to cross your line. Jonathan Marchessault is like Pickett's charge. Like, just, we're going straight up the hill. Who is with me? If you fall down, get yourself back up. We're running up the hill again. Run up.
Yeah, we're not stopping for you.
We're not waiting.
Yeah.
We're going, and it will make the biggest difference for Nashville, because the sooner you get that puck in the net and you get Forsberg and Stamkos where you want them, and you get the puck back to Josi to start kicking that off, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. And I think that was maybe the thing. Like you said, it was like, all right, Preds are on the power play. Let's get settled in here because it's going to be a minute before, before they get set up. And I think it was a lot because Josi was relied upon so much to do everything on the power play.
Yeah,
Like,
just stop him.
it was just to get him, like he had to bring the puck into the zone and everybody had to get like perfectly set up. It reminded me of like, I was like, see, this is why I don't play hockey, because my like anxious OCD brain would be like, okay, wait, let me get set up. Let me just get like this like perfect setup and perfect position. All right, don't start yet. All right, I'm good. Okay, now let's go. It's like that was the whole power play last year. And no wonder it didn't do that well. And I think it, part of that I attribute to the fact that it was a totally new power play under Andrew Brunette. And so I think that maybe the guys got a little stuck in the mechanics of it, because it's like when you learn something new, you're thinking about it a lot more.
Very true.
Which is fine. I mean, that's human. Like it makes sense. But it's like now you kind of need, you talked about like Jonathan Marchessault kind of has a fire under his butt when he plays. And I think you just need that. You need someone, like you said, General Pickett. I love the Civil War reference. Just being like, all right, I'm going. And like you're with me or we're leaving you behind.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I mean, it was very refreshing to see that, to say the least.
It was great. That was one of my favorite things about last night's game, was watching him do that. Coming up, we're going to talk about one of the things that some of our Locked On Predators insiders didn't like so much about the game. It might get a little uncomfortable. You've heard us share the thoughts of our Locked On Predators insiders on today's show. Well, you can easily become one of our insiders via subtext as well. Locked On Predators insiders can talk Nashville Predators hockey beyond the podcast with Emma and I and friends. With the season starting next week, there is no better time to jump in the conversations. We're going to share breaking news with you, give you injury updates, lineup updates. We're going to provide in-game stats and analysis, and we want to get your thoughts and questions that we can use on the podcast. If you want to jump in and join our insiders community, you can click on the link in this video description or check out the link in our bio. All right, Emma, we have to talk about a player that our insiders wanted to point some things out about, and it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's going to bring up some feelings. It's going to bring up some things, but I'm going to be as brave as I can. We got to talk about Scott Wedgwood. One of our insiders said, my one word, Lankinen, with a broken heart emoji, and Emma and I are here for that. So far, not impressed with Wedgie, and it makes me miss Lanky. Hope that improves with time. Another insider said the performance that stood out to me was Wedgwood's. Maybe it's just preseason, but from what I've seen so far, he hasn't been terribly impressive. And I worry what would happen if Saros gets injured or gets more rest than he's gotten in the past. I didn't worry nearly as much when Lankinen was in net. Scott Wedgwood finished with a .733 save percentage, 11 saves on 15 shots. He led in one power play goal. It was a 5-on-3 goal. What is your concern level when it comes to Scott Wedgwood, and just how much weeping and gnashing of teeth do you feel emotionally not seeing Kevin Lankinen as the backup?
Well,
coach.
Those are two different questions.
Those are two different questions.
Like, I had to watch Kevin Lankinen in his Preds mask and pads play for Vancouver the other night. That broke me a little bit. Yeah.
It was terrible.
Emotionally, yes, my heart has been ripped out.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When you ask me how, my concern level about anything during the preseason, I'm going to say it's not that high, because it's the preseason. Like,
talk us down, Emma. Talk us down.
I mean, as I say this, I'm like, all right, Wedge, let's not make me look dumb here once the season starts. But I don't know. I think here's what I think.
Yeah.
If we're looking at last year, UC Saros statistically his worst year of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the new system under Andrew Brunette. And you think, well, how does that affect the goalie? Well, actually, it affects the goalie quite a bit because it changes the way that they see the game and see the ice. And it changes the way that things are happening in front of them and the way they have to react to it. And so, and I actually, ironically, remember talking to Kevin Lankinen about this in great depth last season. And he said, when I asked him, like, is it different, between this versus John Hynes? And he was immediately like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. And he said, yeah, everyone's moving a lot more in front of you. It's less of that kind of stay at home defense. Andrew Brunette focuses more, whether you're offense or defense, he wants you hunting pucks. And so you're on the move and you're trying to box guys out, create space with your body, and get the puck back. And that was very different from the more like traditional stay at home defense that John Hynes liked to play with. So I think that as a goalie, it takes, it definitely takes an adjustment period to be able to get used to that. And how you see the game, how you see the ice. And so that's why for me, I haven't spoken to Scott Wedgwood about this yet, but I plan to. But I imagine he would say something, similar to what Kevin Lankinen told me last year, which is like, yeah, it's different. It definitely takes an adjustment. So that's why I say between that and the fact that it's preseason, I'm not worried.
You're not worried. Okay. So we're not going to worry yet.
Do I think that Scott Wedgwood is UC Saros? No. Like, I'm not like, just wait. Like,
right.
He's going to win a Vezina. I'm not saying that. I just think that let's not judge him too harshly because he did extremely well in the backup role in Dallas last year and the year before. And even kind of came in as that starter role, like briefly when Jake Ottinger got hurt, and he finished with a winning record. So let's all just take a breath and just wait. I will eat my words, if this is happening months from now, but I think right now it's not worth getting worked up over.
Okay. I appreciate that talk down because my level of concern went up as well. And of course, it's wrapped up in the fact that we've lost our life coach. When we look at things that we have 7 days that we want to kind of polish up and improve, I come back to the power play. And I think you touched on one of the biggest things when you talk about Jonathan Marchessault, getting it set up quickly. The other thing is I just think the timing isn't there on the power play yet. But everything else that we saw when they got the puck in, especially on the first couple of power play chances, the last one or two, they just sort of struggled to get it set up. But I think there's a timing element where you were getting the puck to Steven Stamkos the way you want to, just the timing was off. But you want that to be good because remember, like last season, Dallas was 8th best on the penalty kill. 7 of Nashville's first 10 games are against teams who were in, 7 of the 10 teams they're going to play were in the top half of the league in penalty kill. So, you want your power play to be a big part of Nashville's game, especially with the addition of Stamkos and Marchessault. So for me, that's one of those areas where I'm like a little bit more polished. We're down to 7 days. Let's see if we can kind of get that timing down and continue to build on some of the things we saw. What is an area where you're like, you have 7 days, y'all? Let's nail this down, or let's kind of smooth out some of the rough edges when you look at the team?
I think I'm going to go with, this is more of a roster decision. And I obviously understand that those decisions aren't going to be made immediately, but I'm like, figure out what you're doing with that fourth line. Andrew Brunette.
Yes.
Because it's the one line that we're not totally sure. Like, we're sure that Michael McCarron and Cole Smith are going to be there, but it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing with that third spot? Is it Parssinen? Is it LaRue? Is it Jankowski? Is it someone else entirely that we're not considering? Like, I don't know, but I think that it's we talk about wanting to see consistency from guys, and the only way you're going to do that is if you have them consistently playing with the same line mates. And talk to any guy in that locker room and they will tell you that consistently playing with the same guys is hugely helpful in developing chemistry. And so that's kind of what I would like to see. I understand, that's the point of camp, right? Is try everything and see what you have. But now that we're getting towards the end and we're now at the 1 week mark until the season starts, it's like, okay, let's kind of get that nailed down. And again, that's not to say, I understand, obviously lineups are not set in stone opening night and that, it's not going to stay that way the rest of the year necessarily, but I like a little bit more clarity there.
And I don't think there are very many other teams that are like, we need clarity on the fourth line.
Yeah.
But Nashville's fourth line is they were so important. Really and truly, if you look back at 2023-24, you had the top line as being super important for the Predators. And then you had the fourth line being the next most important line for the Nashville Predators. So this isn't just your typical like, hey, who are you throwing out there to keep things going until the top line gets back out? The fourth line is a really important decision. It's good that Andrew Brunette has kind of a basket full of options, but I agree with you at some point for how important and how very specific that fourth line role is. It'd be great to have some idea of who is there and make sure the chemistry is there against, again, a team like Dallas. You got to come out right away with a line that's got some chemistry. So, yeah, I agree with that. Again, 7 days out, y'all, from the start of the regular season. There is still decisions hanging in the air at training camp. We're going to be heading down to training camp this morning. We'll bring you a report on what we hear from Andrew Brunette from the players on tomorrow's episode. And of course, it's Friday. That means it's Fun Friday. Every day is a little bit Fun Friday in our heart, but tomorrow's actually Fun Friday. So be sure you tune in for, I don't know, maybe takes from a hat. Who knows what we're going to pull out tomorrow as well. Before we sign off, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen. And you can also find me freezing my behind off at Centennial Sportsplex. But you can find my work online at the Hockey News.
You can find me online at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find me in my closet swapping out my winter clothes for my really, really, really winter clothes to wear down to Centennial Sportsplex. You can find my work at Penalty Box Radio as well. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, we invite you to go and check out the 2024 NHL season preview. It's on the Locked On NHL channel. It's a 6-episode series that brings you the best local insights to make you the most informed NHL fan heading into the season. You can find that at Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We will be back tomorrow with an all new LO Predators episode. We hope you guys have a great day.